Hello and welcome to another Creative Tab tutorial. We're in quite a festive mood today. I'm going to be showing you how to use CCSnowfall inside of After Effects. Now, a lot of people kind of dislike and hate on CCSnowfall, but that's probably because they're not using it to its full potential. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. So as you can see, it's the 11th of the 12th, 2017. So it's getting quite near to Christmas, which is why I'm doing this Christmassy tutorial. So we're going to have a look at two videos. This is the first one. Some nice little snowfall going along there. So that's one version. Okay, I'm going to play that for you again. And just take that in. And the other version I'm going to show you is this one. Now you can see it's called Bad Snow. And I wonder if you can guess the reason why. Now the reason why this one is, I would say, worse than the other one is there's not a lot of depth in here. You've got some snowflakes which are bigger than others and some which are smaller in the background, but it's very kind of flat. Whereas if we look at, let's come back out of here, if we look at the other version, you've got a lot finer ones in the back and you've got some big ones right up against the camera, so it's kind of reinforcing that sense of depth. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do inside of After Effects today. So we'll have a nice little snowy scene like we've got in here, and you can apply this to a footage or a photo background. Now the photo I'm using is from a royalty-free site called Pexels, okay, and that's P-E-X-E-L-S. I'll put the link in the description, but it's a really good resource for using images. Okay, so just to break down what we've got going on here is we've got the image on bottom. Then we've got multiple, so if I play it through here, so just change this to quarter just so it plays back quicker. There we go. We've got a lot of snow going on there. So we've got our foreground flakes, which are these big ones by here. We've got our mid-ground, well, I've called mid-foreground because there's two mid-grounds. Mid-foreground flakes are some which are relatively close, then ones which are further back, and then these really fine ones in the background as well. Okay, so we build up all of these, which build a sense of depth, and then we've also got a camera movement on there as well, which is very, very, very slight. You can see it if I turn the image on. Okay, so let's dive on in. First thing I'm going to do is go to Composition, New Composition, 1920 by 1080, 25 frames per second. That's great. 15 seconds, that's too long. I think I'm just going to go for 5 in my case. You can do whatever length you need, and I'm going to click OK. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to import my image. So if I want to import my image, all I need to do is just delete that, double click, and let's go to where my image is. Here it is, Pexels, and click import. And I've got it here, and I can drag it down, and right now it's a little bit too big, so hit S. So I've got the scale properties and I can scale it down, but we're going to be doing this more later, so I'm just going to ignore this for now, but we just know it's in there. So I'm going to right click and rename it to BG for background, and I'm just going to turn it off. I don't want to see it at the moment. Now next I'm going to go to Layer, New, and Solid. Black solid's fine, but we'll call it FG for FG Flakes. Can't spell that right. Okay, click OK. And we're going to search over in here for Snowfall, and then drag CCSnowfall onto your new solid. Okay, so if we were to click play, you can see we've got some little snowflakes in there. If I put that to full, you might be able to see it better. It's quite dark actually, so if I were to make these, I got a size here, so I can make these bigger. So you can probably see them a lot better now. If I put that to 15, so you can see them fall in there. Now there's loads of parameters which we can change in here, and the first one I'm going to go for is, if this is the foreground flakes, we want less flakes there, and we want them to be very, very, very big. So let's get this size all the way up, and maximum it goes is 15. So already we've got an issue. So you might be thinking, how did I get these big flakes by here? Well, let's hit this foreground flakes and hit S. You can see I've scaled up this layer quite a lot. So let's hit S on this one and scale it up, and I'm also going to turn the scene depth all the way down to 100. Okay, so they're all on the same sort of depth. There's no smaller ones, no bigger ones. And now I can turn the amount of flakes all the way down as well. And I think where it comes to size variation, I'm going to turn that up so we have got a little bit of size difference. And let's bring the size up a little bit more. There we go. Now it still looks a little bit naff. If we hit play, it's not great. So what we can do is, first of all, I'm going to add a little bit of wind, maybe 5, so they're going across slightly. Let's have a look at that now. Maybe a bit more. Let's go back to the wind. Let's put that to 15. And let's play that again. Yeah, they've got a little bit of random movement to them now, which is good. Speed, I'm going to bring this down, no, sorry, up to about 350. If they're closer to the camera, I expect them to be falling faster, past the camera faster. There we go. Scene depth is down, size is up. Number of flakes, I may bring this down to, yeah, 400, I think. Now, they're still quite dark, so we can come to the opacity and bring it up to 100, but they're still very, very see-through. So what we can do is we can, if we look at spread also, you know, you can play around with that and see what different looks you get. I'm going to leave mine as it was on 15. But if you come to this background illumination, you can turn the influence down and these get brighter. Now they are going quite fast past the camera, and actually I think I'm going to turn my size variation down. Oh no, up. Yeah, actually up, yeah. And let's have a look, maybe size down to 14, yeah, something like that. Now on their own, they don't look great. I think I'm going to turn the amount down to 200 as well. Maybe even 150, something like that. So I've got, you know, a couple ones which are close. And I think wind, I'm going to push that up to 30, give them some more random movements. And I'll put, tell you what, wind I'll go for 50. And wind variation, I'll put that up to 20. And let's see what kind of a look we got now. There you go. I'm happy with that. Okay, so this is our foreground flakes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this process but change various things as I go along. Okay, so let's go right click, new, solid again, and we'll call this midground flakes. And I'm going to make this comp size, and I didn't do that last time, so I'm just going to click make comp size. It's 1920 by 1080, but yours probably already was. And I'll click OK. So I'll come to CCSnowfall, and again I'm just gonna look what I've got here, and I want the wind to be the same, wind 50, variation of wind 20. So wind 50, variation 20, and now I can kind of play around a little bit more. So I'll bring the size of the flakes up and the opacity of them up a little bit as well to 100 for now. Let's see what we've got so far. So we've got, you know, some quite nice stuff going on there. Now speed, I want to bring the speed variation up to 100 for this, so they all fall at different rates, which is quite nice. That gives us sort of, adds to the depth as well. Now the scene depth is already on 5000, and I'm going to keep it like that for this one, but I will bring these, the size of these flakes up a bit more, and I may also scale this up to like 120. Okay, so right now we've got, you know, something that looks fairly okay. Again, it's quite flat. Now the problem is we can't see these foreground flakes, so what we need to do is we need to turn these to screen, and then you'll see the flakes through each other. So we've got the foreground ones by here, and then we've got the background ones. Now the background ones are a little bit darker, so we can go to background illumination and turn this down a little bit. You'd expect as they go off into the distance for them to be a little bit not as bright, but we can build on that throughout. So I'm just going to turn this down to maybe 60. Okay, so we've got the foreground flakes and the sort of mid-ground flakes there at the moment, which is good. Now again, I'm going to do the same again. So right click in the empty space down here, new, solid, and yeah, that's that. I'm going to call this BG flakes and click OK. Drag CCSnowfall on there, and for the size, again, I'm going to bring this up to about maybe 8, bring the opacity up, and I think, what was our wind? Wind was 50, wind variation was 20. So wind 50, wind variation 20. Okay, now we've got a little bit of depth in there as well, and you can see that if I turn them off, these are a lot smaller again. So if I screen these through, change the blending mode to screen, turn them on and off, you can see it's adding that variation, okay, and that depth more importantly, because you've got this scene depth, but it doesn't go high enough to give you massive ones at the front and these small ones at the back. So for these mid-ground flakes, actually, I'm going to scale these up a little bit more, because something like that, yeah. And I'm going to come to these background flakes again, and I think I'm going to leave them there for now, and I'm going to add maybe another mid-ground one in there like I did before. So let's call this mid-ground foreground, as in it's mid-ground but it's closer to the foreground flakes. And we're going to duplicate this mid-ground foreground flakes by selecting a layer and going Control D, and it's going to duplicate it, but we're going to scale this back down to something like that. And you can see it looks as if it's kind of duplicated them, but what you can do is come down into the extras by here on this layer and alter this random seed, okay, and it's going to randomize it. And I think I'm going to bring the size of them down just to like 12, I think, and maybe the amount of flakes down to about, let's say, 8,000. There you go. So now we've got a fair variation, okay. So let's just let that preview, and you can see there's a lot more depth in there at the moment. You've got these big ones at the front, you've got very, very small ones at the back, and you've got those sort of two mid-ground ones. Now, there's not a great deal of kind of movement in there at the moment. It's falling quite down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push up this wind, let's say to 120. Let's just see what that does on each of them. So wind 120, wind 120, wind 120, and let's see what this one gives us. And you can see they're going a little bit more across now, a little bit more diagonal, and that's going to kind of add it as well. So I'm not going to play around with those settings too much. You feel free to kind of play around with them as much as you can. Now sometimes some people worry that, you know, that's these foreground flakes, you can kind of see through them. Not necessarily a bad thing. If things are close to the camera, they'll be blurred, out of focus, and you may well get that effect. But I will show you how to, you know, manipulate that if you don't like that. Okay, so we've got something actually which is looking a lot better with it sort of drifting across now. So anyway, if we come back to these, come back to the foreground flakes, you can alter this influence so they're a lot brighter, but actually I don't think that looks completely right, so I'll always put mine to about maybe 20, so they are quite a bit brighter, but they are still, you can see through them a little bit because they're falling fast. It acts as motion blur, and it just looks, you know, more authentic like that. Okay, so now that we've turned all of these snow layers to screen, if we were to turn our background on, it appears on our background, okay, because we're screening them through. If all of these layers were to be normal, all you'll see is the background flakes on top, and it's not gonna, you know, you're not gonna see the background or any of the others. So that's why we're turning these to screen, and then you've got a lot more depth. Now the last thing I'm going to do is add a little camera movement, okay? So what I need to do is select all these layers. Well, you don't need to select them. You can click toggle switches, and you've got this 3D layer icon, okay? And I'm going to get the position of my background, and I'm going to push this into Z depth, okay? So I'll put that to about maybe 1,100 odd pixels in the background. So if I go to 2 views horizontal, you can see that the snow layers are here, and you can by all means push these in the background. Let's push the background ones a little bit out, like so, and maybe the mid-ground ones back a little bit, like so, and these mid-ground ones like so. So they are a little bit layered. Now the problem is you may want to scale these up, because if I select this layer, you can see the bounding box for the background flakes is there because we've pushed it away from us. So all we can do is, with that layer selected, if that happens with you, you don't need to scale it up. You can just go to Layer, Solid Settings, and alter the width and the height like so, and click OK, and that'll just make sure that that's all okay. So then all the rest of them are in. So we need to scale this background up like so, and I may, just for the purpose of this, because it's not a widescreen photo, I may just unlock this by here and scale out so it looks good like that. Okay, there we go, something like that. Now what I'm going to do is go to Layer, New, Camera, click OK, put this camera up the top, and come to the beginning, come into this drop down, transform, and set a keyframe for point of interest and position. But before I move forward, I just want to make sure that the camera's all the way as far to the left as it can go, like so. There we go. So we've just got the edge of the, oh, it's gone back, just so we're at the very, very edge of that image. So I'm just dragging it along its x-axis in this view by here, grabbing that red arrow. So that position's set. So I can come forward now, and by the end of these 5 seconds, I'm going to click and drag this x-axis across, like so. So just go to the very, very end of the image, but there's only a very, very slight movement. Now there's one issue. If we look at this, which one is it? I think this back one by here. You can see that it finishes by there, and you're not going to notice that because they're the background flakes, very, very sort of small. But that would bug me because when the camera moves, it'll be cutting off some flakes by there. So all you can do, go to Layer, Solid Settings, and alter the width, and there, you're covered. Click OK, and it's done. So if we go back to one view now, and give this a preview, you will have a nice sort of snowy scene with some flakes very close to the camera, some flakes in the background, and they're screened on top because, again, a lot of people tend to just get their image or their footage and apply the CCSnowfall to that layer, but I think it's better building on solid layers and then screening them over the top because it does the exact same thing as what this effect does. Okay, so if we preview that, you can see what we've got just very quickly. There you go. And that's got a lot of depth to it. I'm not going to preview the full thing. Actually, if I go to quarter, I can. So you can see that you've got close ones and you've got far ones and you've got that depth, and it makes it a lot more realistic. So that being said, I will show you very quickly what some people tend to do. If we just get rid of all of these, turn the camera and all these layers off, some people often tend to chuck the CCSnowfall on an image, and then they would change this to composite, so it puts it on top, and they change this around. Let's just alter these settings so you can see the snow. Size bigger, and move scene depth a little bit bigger, and then they go like that. And if you look at that, you know, I would play around with the settings a bit more, maybe chuck that wind up. That does look good, but in comparison, let's turn this CCSnowfall off and turn these on. In comparison, that's a hell of a lot better and a lot more realistic. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for this tutorial. Make sure that you like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter for more exclusive updates of our free Udemy courses, and to know when we upload in more YouTube videos. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you're notified when we upload more stuff. And yeah, cheers. I'll see you when I next upload tutorial, which will be tomorrow. Cheers.